Have you ever looked at a school discipline situation and just thought, something's not right here? When what happens to one student is handled completely differently for another? Well, today we're going deep into that feeling because sometimes it's more than just unfairness. It can be illegal discrimination. Let's get into it.
You've probably heard this line before, right? It's the go-to response from a school when you question a decision. And look, on the surface, it sounds fair, it sounds reasonable, but it can also be used as a shield from major inconsistencies. And when those inconsistencies start to form a pattern, well, that's when you have a serious problem. So to really get what this looks like in the real world, let's break down a story. It all starts with just one single incident, but trust me, it ends up revealing something much, much bigger. Okay, so picture this. You've got two eighth graders who get into a heated argument in the hallway. The important thing here is that their behavior is identical. Both of them are cussing, both are threatening to fight later. A teacher breaks it up, sends them both to the principal's office. Seems like a clear-cut case, right? Well, let's see what happens next. Now, just look at this breakdown. Student A, who is black, gets a 3-day suspension that goes onto his permanent record. Oh, and by the way, he has a completely clean discipline history, no priors. Meanwhile, student B, who is white and has already had 3 prior incidents just this semester, gets a verbal warning, no record. Same exact behavior, but the outcomes couldn't be more different. So, as you can imagine, student A's parents knew something was wrong. They started digging, and what they found showed that their son's experience wasn't just a one-off mistake. They filed a public records request for the school's discipline data, and that's when a really clear, really disturbing pattern came to light. The data showed that at this particular school, Black students were being suspended at 4 times the rate of white students. Let that sink in. 4 times. That's not a small difference. That's a massive, glaring gap that you just can't ignore. And here's the why behind that 4x number. It's all about how many chances a student gets. On average, white students at this school got almost 6 warnings before they were suspended. Nearly 6. But Black students, they got on average just 1. The benefit of the doubt, that leniency, it just wasn't being applied equally, not even close. So we've seen the story, we've seen the data. This pattern, this problem, it actually has a name. And understanding that name is the first real step to holding a school accountable. It's called selective enforcement. It's when a school's rules are applied differently depending on who you are, your race, your disability, your gender. It isn't about the rule itself being bad. It's about who gets a slap on the wrist and who gets the book thrown at them for doing the exact same thing. And here's the part that is absolutely crucial to understand. It doesn't matter if an administrator says, "Oh, I'm not biased, I don't see race." The law doesn't care about their intent. It looks at the outcome. If the pattern of their decisions consistently harms a specific group of students, the pattern itself is considered a civil rights violation. Now, I know this might feel like a huge mountain to climb. How do you actually prove something like this? The good news is there's a clear legal framework for it. So let's walk through how it's actually done. Most of these cases are not built on trying to prove that an administrator is secretly biased. That's incredibly hard to do. Instead, they're built on a legal concept called disparate impact. It basically says that if a school's practice, even if it sounds neutral, ends up causing disproportionate harm to a protected group, then it's discriminatory. You don't need to prove intent. You let the data do the talking. And this isn't just some vague idea. It is grounded in powerful federal civil rights laws. Title VI protects students from discrimination based on race. Section 504 and the ADA cover disability. Title IX covers sex and gender. These laws are what makes selective enforcement illegal in any school that gets federal money, which is pretty much all of them. So what's the game plan to build a case? It's really a 5-step process. First, you find students who did the same thing. Second, you document the different punishments they got. Third, you show that the key difference between them is a protected characteristic, like their race. Then, you get to the heavy lifting. You gather that school-wide data to prove it's a pattern, not a fluke. And finally, and this is the knockout punch, you systematically eliminate the school's excuses. You have to show that things like prior conduct don't actually explain the difference. Remember our example? The student who got punished harsher actually had the cleaner record. When you rule out all the other logical reasons, the only variable left standing is discrimination. Okay, so knowing all this is one thing, but knowing what you can actually do about it, that's where the power is. So here's a concrete step-by-step action plan for how to document and challenge selective enforcement. Start right away with a tool like this. We call it a comparative discipline chart. It looks simple, but it is an incredibly powerful way to organize the evidence. You document exactly what your child did, the consequence they got, and their prior record. Then you do the same for a comparison student. This chart becomes the foundation of your case. Next, you have to zoom out. You have to move beyond just your child's story and show that it's part of a school-wide pattern. And the way you do that is by submitting a formal public records request. Ask for anonymized discipline data, broken down by race, by disability, by gender. This is how you uncover the system-level problem. Once you have that evidence, you have options. You can file a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. You can use your data as powerful leverage in meetings with the school district. And remember to document both sides of this coin, not just when your child is punished too harshly, but also when another student who harms them isn't punished enough.
And when you do talk to the district, this framing is everything. This language right here shifts the entire conversation. It's no longer just about my child's feelings were hurt or my kid was treated unfairly. It becomes your district has a serious legal exposure problem for potentially violating federal civil rights law. That gets their attention.
So we'll end with this question. When that totality of circumstances, when that individual judgment a school talks about somehow creates a consistent pattern where one group of students always gets the harsher outcome, at what point do we stop calling it judgment and start calling it what it really is?